Some of you may already be familiar with my work, but for those of you who aren't, I'll give a little background. I'm both an environmental activist and an artist, and I combine the two to make artwork about water issues in California and the American West. My approach is to use beauty to encourage people to look at hard issues. The inspiration for my work comes from the connections between humans and the water and land that we need to survive. I'm drawn to the bird's eye point of view, and I focus on the human mark on the landscape that affects our water resources in some way. I paint on silk, then stitch it on my sewing machine using quilting techniques. After almost 2 decades of making art by myself in my studio, I wanted to return to doing more collaborative projects. A couple of years ago, I was awarded a Creative Ecology Art and Science residency, where I would spend a month engaging with the public in an open space park and then make art about the experience. I chose a new open space park called Cooley Landing in a low-income city of East Palo Alto. The residents are mostly people of color, and almost 30% of the population is below poverty level. This is a bird's eye view of Cooley Landing today. However, this peninsula of land didn't always exist. 200 years ago, the area was pristine wetlands, but those wetlands were filled with garbage from 1932 to 1960, when it became the San Mateo County dump. If you look at the timeline along the bottom, you'll see how the landfill grew, contaminating the soil with lead, mercury, PCBs, and other toxins. Today, Cooley Landing is a new public park. The toxic landfill has been capped with 6 feet of clean soil. Native species have returned and are thriving. During the month of July, we engaged over 140 people in art and science activities at Cooley Landing. We observed the environment around us with microscopes, magnifying glasses, and our unaided eyes, and recorded our observations in sketchbooks by writing and drawing. During the week, we had children from local summer camps, and on the weekends, we were joined by families and individuals. The next part of the residency involved me making art about the open space experience in a public studio where people could drop in and observe my process and ask questions. Watching me paint on silk or stitch on my sewing machine is interesting for about, 30 seconds, but I thought it would be way more interesting if people could try silk painting themselves. I decided to make this part of my residency socially engaged, and I invited people to make small silk paintings that would then be sewn together into a community quilt. I created a color palette of 8 different colors so that all the paintings would harmonize with each other. And the teacher of these high school students commented that she'd never seen them so focused. And here are some happy young artists with their paintings. I wanted everyone to be able to make a silk painting, so I prepared the silk ahead of time with 7 different designs. That way people who didn't feel comfortable drawing still were able to participate. And it still left a lot of room for very creative painting, as you can see. I had received a request from the East Palo Alto City Council to involve their senior population in this quilting project. I was hoping they could sew the quilt top together, but it took me a long time to get past the gatekeeper of the senior center. So I ended up sewing the quilt top myself because of the timing of my residency exhibition, and this is how it turned out. 4 months after my residency was over, I did manage to get into the senior center. So every Friday for 6 months, I hand quilted with a group of seniors for several hours, and I truly enjoyed getting to know them and hearing the stories they shared as we worked with our hands. The other socially engaged project I did was a temporary land art installation at Cooley Landing to mark where the shoreline of the wetlands used to be, before the landfill, by placing blue plastic survey whiskers into the landscape. The original plan was to leave the installation up for a month and then remove it. In researching where the former shoreline of Cooley Landing was, I found this United States Coastal Survey map of San Francisco Bay from 1857. This super detailed map was recorded by an energetic 24-year-old surveyor who paddled the bay in a canoe, and you can see the extensive wetlands as well as the pier that was the original Cooley Landing. By placing this map over a recent Google Earth satellite image, I could locate the former shoreline relative to the present-day features. I've highlighted the placement of the installation on the map in blue, careful to avoid areas of the park that are off limits to the public. On the installation days, I marked the former shoreline with landscape stakes and orange flagging tape. The community then helped place the blue plastic survey whiskers along this line by hammering them into the ground using 5-inch nails. Participants ranged in age from 30 to 80 years old, and they all enjoyed the process. And here's a view of one section of the final installation. The entire installation is made of 2,000 plastic survey whiskers, and it's over 500 feet long. People loved the installation and asked if it could stay permanently, but as an environmentalist, I couldn't leave plastic out there. The idea of a permanent installation stuck with me, and I thought it would be really cool to replace the survey whiskers with native plants, but I had no idea what would be appropriate. So I partnered with a local restoration nonprofit, and they suggested using a California native plant called juncus. And together we created a new project which we call the Living Shoreline Project. Over the past 2 years, we worked with community volunteers to plant juncus along the line of blue plastic survey whiskers. During the week, we had school classrooms ranging from kindergartners to high school students, and on weekends, individuals and families came out to plant. Here's a recent photo of the juncus we planted, each one marked by a blue flag. I hope this installation inspires people to wonder, what would Cooley Landing be like today if the wetlands were still here? And what new things do we observe now that the land is here instead? Thank you very much for the opportunity to share this with you.